Hi, good evening, everyone. Welcome to day 4 on getting started with Salesforce. And tonight we're going to be going through the continuation of what we learned yesterday, and that's security controls and sharing models part 2. So again, I haven't made any changes to the curriculum made by Salesforce. So the expectations are we should know how to use the appropriate tools and features or capabilities of Salesforce to control access to data, okay? And to determine who can see data. Everything we've been learning since yesterday is access control, data protection, and the likes, okay? So again, looking at the bullet points yesterday, we talked about creating a custom profile for accounting department. We talk about objects. We learned about object level security. We learned about field level security. We learned about permission sets, permission set group, and we touched based on organization-wide defaults. So today we're going to continue this lesson by learning about the role hierarchy, learning about sharing rules and manual sharing. We're also going to learn about criteria and owner-based sharing and the use cases, including public groups. So without wasting much of your time, let's go straight into our Trailhead org. Our Trailhead is trailhead.salesforce.com. If you do not have an account, you click on sign up and you create an account. Do not use this. Do not use your personal, use your email, but do not put your email address. Try to use Google, LinkedIn, or Facebook, so you don't forget your profile. Whatever you do on your Trailhead, you accumulate points. But if you're using different email addresses, it might be very difficult to connect them together, okay? So you don't want your points to be scattered everywhere. You want them to accumulate, and you want to be able to see your progress in terms of points and badges, okay? Again, that's how you log into your Salesforce Trailhead. Your Salesforce Trailhead has nothing to do with single login, has nothing to do with every technology we've built to make this training seamless. The Salesforce Trailhead is totally different, okay? To get into a demonstration hub, you go to the hands-on hubs. The hands-on hubs is where you can create a dummy playground where you can demonstrate whatever I'm teaching you this evening. In addition to that, you can create multiple playgrounds under one profile. That's fine. Your points on each of these playgrounds would accumulate to that profile. So don't worry about placing one playground. You can create as many playgrounds as possible, but there is a limit to the number of playgrounds you can create. Once you reach that limit, Salesforce will force you to either disconnect that playground or they will ask you to relaunch that playground so it can remain active, okay? So now I'm going to launch our playground, which I've been using for the past few days. So today we're going to be learning more of the role hierarchy, sharing rules, criteria, owner-based sharing, and public groups. So before I go into this lesson, I would like to recap. Yesterday, we learned about objects. We haven't done objects, but I briefly introduced you to objects because the knowledge of the objects is required to know how to protect data in an object. I explained yesterday that we have fields and we have records in that field. So if you have an account object, you have account name as a field, account site as a field, phone type, everything as a field, then you have record in those fields. If you click on one of those records, you can see details of that record. So for instance, we have this account, and this account record has all this information. Then I told you about how you can hide accounts objects at an object level, how you can hide records at a detail level, and how you can hide record at a field level. Okay, so now let's go into our backend to learn about role hierarchy. Going back to the backend, to get to the backend, you go to the gear icon and you click on Setup. Always remember, the backend interface will be different from the front-end interface. Front-end is a demonstration or showcases what you've made or the changes you've made in the backend. Okay? So I'm going to go back to user, and we've been using two users, okay? The first user we've been using is a system administrator. By default, every organization will come with a system administrator. That's the owner of, like pretty much the owner, but not necessarily have to be the owner. It's just that the person that has the ability to do and undo within the Salesforce hub. So this is our system administrator, and this is the profile information of the system administrator. By profile information, I mean user details. So don't mistake the user details with profiles, okay? Don't mistake that. And now that we have the user, I wanted to show you one thing about role. As you can see, the system administrator does not have a role assigned to it. Going to our second user, which is our test user, we have the role of a CFO. Now, let me edit this role and put it as, I don't know, let's use VP of marketing, and I save. Now, go to roles. What are roles hierarchy? The roles hierarchy grants access to records to users that have a role above the record owner. What do I mean by that? If we have a CEO and we have a CFO, the role hierarchy grants access to the records of a CFO to the CEO, because the CEO is greater in role hierarchy compared to the CFO. Similarly, if we have the role of SVP sales and marketing, and we have a role of VP marketing, a user assigned to the role of SVP sales and marketing would see record access of a user that has VP marketing. So now, based on this fact, let's try to log in as our other user and demonstrate. I'm going to copy the username. Let me log out. Okay, before I copy the username, I'll just paste it somewhere so I don't forget. Then I'm going to log out. I actually don't have to log out. I have to go to incognito to open a new instance of a Salesforce and log in as that other user. Okay, so I just grab the username, then I log in as the user. So now we have a session for this user. It's still loading. Again, similar to what we had yesterday, I need to verify because Salesforce wouldn't let me. Salesforce developer 9060. So now I want to check the email Salesforce sent to me for this user. Sorry, 1 minute. So Salesforce sent me this code to verify my user because I'm working on incognito. That's why it's asking me that. If you're working on a normal browser, once you log in, you don't have to constantly verify, okay? So right now, I have my user logged in here. That's a Salesforce test user. And I have my admin login from the launch. Remember, the system admin login from the launch, because I don't even remember the username and password of my system admin. It was created based on my playground, okay? But I can also obviously reset the password and use it, but that's not important right now. I just want to test 2 instances. So going back to the setup, I go to my user. So what are the expectations based on what I said? This guy, test user, has a role VP marketing. I refresh this screen, and this guy can only see the records created by the test user. Okay? Now, going back to the admin profile, I have to create or select a role for the admin that is lower in VP marketing. Or let me go to my roles and play around with the roles. So if I go to this role, I know SVP sales marketing is higher than VP marketing. So I'm going to give my test user SVP sales and marketing. And I'm going to give my admin VP marketing. I'll go to users, I edit, and I give admin VP marketing. I save. I edit my test user, and I give my test user SVP sales marketing, which is a senior vice president. So what I'm technically telling you that right now is that the test user is senior in role when compared to my system admin. Remember, profile has nothing to do with role. Role opens up the access for data based on role hierarchy. Who is the boss? That's what it means. Profile means what I can do, what I cannot do. But role means who is the boss, who is in charge. CEO is higher than CFO. CFO is higher than whatever subordinate is in CFO. There is no subordinate right now, but I'll tell you about that later. So remember, SVP marketing is our test user, and VP marketing is our admin user. Now, previously, this is what this guy can see. But now, this guy can see more than the records it created. So what I'm trying to tell you right now is because the test user is now a SVP, senior vice president, higher than the VP marketing. The SVP can now see more records than the more records when compared to when it was below a certain role. Again, let me explain. We have a role for test user. Test user has a role called SVP sales and marketing. And we have a role for this user. The admin has user VP marketing. According to the role hierarchy, any role that is higher than a particular role, the user that has this role will be able to see all the records of its subordinates. So anyone under this user in terms of role, I will be able to see. Based on that fact, I was able to see all these records. Now, what you need to understand is this. Let me refresh this and let's go to the right-hand side, edit, okay? Edit, okay? And I go to profiles. Remember, yesterday we worked on profiles and we created a sample profile called accounting department. I edit this accounting department and I go to the object settings. I'm taking off the edit permission on the accounting department. After taking up the edit permission, I save. I go back to my user, my test user, to see what happens. After taking up the edit permission, test user can no longer edit the account records, even though system admin has edit access to the account records. This is the system admin, and this is edit access. So what I'm trying to explain to you right now is the profile of the system admin enables the system admin to have edit access. However, because the test user is higher in role hierarchy, the test user was able to only see records, but the test user could not edit. The test user could not edit because the test user does not have a profile that has edit access. So what I'm trying to explain is it does not matter whether you are above or below or you're by the side. If you don't have edit access on your profile, you will not be able to edit. Again, let me go back and show you that this test user has no edit access. That's why the test user cannot see. Now, let's see a case whereby the test user does not have a read access. The test user does not have a read access. I'm going to take it off and I'm going to save. So going back to the test user, remember this. Because of the role hierarchy, the test user was able to see all the records of the admin. The reason why the test user was able to see all the records was because the test user has a read permission. Now, the test user cannot even see the account object. The test user cannot see the account object because the test user does not have a read access to the account object. So, in summary, the role hierarchy is used to open up access. The role hierarchy is used to give additional access. It is not used to prevent or stop access. It is used to open up access. Remember that just like permission sets, the role hierarchy is used to open up access. But your profile needs to be enabled before you can enjoy that benefit of opened access. You cannot just enjoy the benefit of open access because you have a VP or a CEO role. Your profile needs to be enabled before you can enjoy that benefit. So remember this, the role hierarchy is used to open up access, not prevent access. Let's go back to sharing settings we showed yesterday. Before you can open up access with a role hierarchy, this needs to be enabled on the object of interest, meaning that if grant access using hierarchies is not checked, the whole logic of opening up access will not work. So for access to be opened, this grant access using hierarchies needs to be checked. By default, grant access using hierarchies is checked on all standard objects. Standard objects are the object that comes by default when you launch your org. Standard objects are objects created by default when you get your Salesforce license. Tomorrow, we're going to be talking about objects, but I just wanted to give you a heads up. the role hierarchy would not work unless grant access using hierarchies is enabled. Now, let's go back to the roles and we go to roles hierarchy. Remember, SV marketing is a sales admin. Now, let's make admin CFO and test user SVP sales marketing. I go to user. I edit. No, I want to edit the admin. I edit and I give the admin CFO. Okay. Now I go and refresh this. Okay, I need to enable account for the test user. I go to the test user profile and I enable account so the test user can actually see the account object. Then I save. So now I refresh this. The account object is back, but what can you see? You can only see the records created by the test user. You can only see the records created by the test user. Why is that? Despite CFO being at the top level. If we go back again to the rows and see where CFO is, CFO and SVP are on the same level of role hierarchy. So it doesn't matter if CFO is at the top here, as long as they're on the same level, they cannot see the records of each other. It has to be subordinate. It has to be subordinate, meaning people under the SVP, people under the CFO. That's when it's open up. Subordinate means someone at a lower role compared to the person at the upper role. So if they're on the same level, the role hierarchy does not open up the access. They are all still on the same role. Now, when you have a situation like this, there are other ways which you can share records. This is where the sharing rules come in. What are sharing rules? Sharing rules are rules created to share record of one owner with another person. Let me repeat. Sharing rules are created to share the records of one owner with another person. How do you get to sharing rules? You go to sharing settings in your quick find. Then you go to the objects of interest under sharing rules. You go to the object of interest under sharing rules. I want to share the account record of someone with another person. I click on new and I will say share records of CFO with SVP, marketing or whatever you want to call it. Now that you have this label, which is just a random word you use to identify your sharing rules, then you select the type of sharing rules you want. The type of sharing rules you want will determine how the sharing is done. So I'm going to select based on record owner, meaning I want to share all the records created by this guy, okay? I want to share the records created by this guy or someone with this guy role with another person. Now I go to account owned by members of what, of who. I select roles. I select roles. Then I select CFO, meaning that I want to share the record of all the users that have the roles of a CFO. I want to share that record with all the users that have the roles of SVP, Sales and Marketing. Sharing rules enables you to share the records based on the record owner. The record owner can come in different capacity. The first is public groups. The second is roles. The third is roles and subordinates. You would see manager and manager subordinate groups if you have enabled it in your sharing settings. This does not get enabled by default. You have to enable it before you can use it. But this was recently released by Salesforce, so we wouldn't go too much into it. Let's focus on this, which usually come out in exams. You can share based on public groups, roles, and subordinates. I will explain what this means shortly. But remember, you can also share with manager groups, manager subordinate groups. Now, what I'm trying to show before was, I want to share the record owned by people with the roles of CFO, our admin. I want to share it with the people with the roles of SVP, our test user. And I want to grant access. What kind of access do I want to grant? I can specify that access. The minimum access you can grant is the read-only on the account and contracts objects. Then you can grant private read-only, read-write on the opportunity and case. This is also an exam question. I save. Now that I've saved, a new sharing rule will be calculated and an email will be sent to you once the sharing rule is completed. Previously, because the admin is on the role level CFO and the test user is on the role level SVP, because they're on the same level, the test user could not see the records of a CFO. Now, if I refresh this, because of sharing rules which I created, the test user can now see all records created by someone with the role CFO. Sharing rules enables you to open up access. It does not close or restrict access. So if you want to open up access based on a particular set of people, group, you can use sharing rules. Going back, now that I've enabled a sharing rule based on record owner, I'm going to delete that sharing rule again so we can test more scenarios. I delete this sharing rule and this guy will not be able to see the records anymore. Okay? Back to normal. Okay? So now going back, I want to spend more time on sharing rules and show you what is possible. I go back to sharing settings and I go to the sharing rules for account object. Remember, you can do sharing rules for lead, account, opportunity, case, most of the standard objects created by Salesforce. You can do sharing rules for them, but mostly you do sharing rules for lead, account, opportunity, case, campaigns. Now I click on new. Previously, we shared based on role. Now I have share records of CFO, okay? And instead of, let me do something before I try that. I want to go to the rows. Now, this SVP is greater than VP. This is the role. This is subordinates of this role. So if I say role and subordinates, I mean records of this role and its subordinates. So based on this fact, I can make test user CFO, and I can make admin VP marketing. I'm just reversing the case, okay? I'll go back, users. I want to make my admin someone lower, like VP marketing. Remember, I want to make my test user CFO. CFO has no relationship with SVP and the likes, okay? So my test user is CFO. My admin is VP marketing. Going to roles, I have SVP sales marketing. No one has that role at the moment. No one has that role. VP is my admin. Test user is my CFO. Okay? Then I go to sharing settings. Now I want to create a new account sharing rules. I will say CFO shared with SVP and subordinates, meaning that anyone that has a role SVP and every other roles under SVP. Previously, we are sharing roles. Now we are sharing roles and subordinates, meaning anyone under SVP and all other roles under SVP. That's what it means, subordinates. Then I'm saying SVP. I'm selecting SVP. I'm not selecting VP of marketing. But remember, our admin is under VP of marketing, whereas I'm selecting senior vice presidents. So I'm sharing all the records.
Sorry, shouldn't that be CFO? Since you're sharing CFO records. So that should be role CFO, then select the users to share it. Just...
Our admin is VP marketing. This is the guy that owns the record I want to share.
Okay.
The person I want to share it with is the CFO.
Okay.
So the first thing you select is the person that owns the record. In this case, we don't want to select the person, the role of the person. We want to select a role that is higher than the role of the person, but we want to utilize this subordinates. Meaning, I am going to select SVP Sales and Marketing, knowing well that under SVP Sales and Marketing, we have VP Marketing. Because of the privilege SVP of Sales and Marketing has, we are going to see all the records of VP Marketing as a result. Then I say roles, then I'm sharing with the CFO. Remember, this is based on record owner. And the record owner is determined by roles and subordinates. I go to share with SVP, then I give access of share, I save. So technically, because of association of VP marketing with the SVP of sales and marketing, the test user will now be able to see all these records. This is the influence of subordinates. Now that we have seen that, I will go and delete that sharing rules again so we can test more scenarios. That is sharing rules based on owner. Sharing rules based on owner. Now let's do sharing rules based on criteria. Sharing rules based on criteria is similar to sharing rules based on owner. However, with criteria, you have to specify the reason, or you have to specify what should be shared based on a particular instance, field, or anything. By criteria, it means if any account in the system as account number CD6566092. Share it with X user. If the account rating is 1, share it with X users. If the SLA is silver, share it with X user. Criteria uses a field in the object to determine whether to share the records or not. For instance, I'm going to share all records that has an account name, Burlington Textiles. Okay? I copy this account name, I go to my sharing settings, and I create, let me refresh this so I can delete the sharing rules, which has been deleted. I click on new, and I say share based on name. It's gonna share based on name, that is Burlington Textiles, okay? So instead of record owner, any record in the system that has the account name equals to Burlington Textiles is going to share it with whoever you want to share it with. Remember, you can use any field here. Criteria-based sharing looks for instances that match whatever field you are interested in. This is typically used for SLA or used for a sales team. When you have annual revenue greater than a certain amount, share it with a group of people. I'm going to show you how to do that shortly. So now that we have this, I'm going to say, who do I want to share it with? Again, I'm selecting roles and I'm selecting CFO, knowing well that the test user has the role CFO. So let's recap. Share based on name. It could be anything, but I'm just selecting name for an example. I select the rule type. The rule type determines how the records will be shared. Shared based on criteria would give you extra option to determine what criteria needs to be used for the sharing to take place. Share based on record owner would only be based on a group, roles and subordinates. In the new edition of Salesforce, they've enabled managers group and manager subordinates. Going back to criteria, we have this. Then I'm sharing with the CFO, meaning that only records that has the name Burlington Textiles will be shared with the test user. Now going back to the test user, I refresh. Only the record Burlington Textiles is visible to the test user. This is how you share records from one place to another. It can be based on roles. It can be based on roles and subordinates. It can be based on public groups. As you can see, the test user does not have edit access. Even though we have specified that, going back to the sharing rules, even though if you look at the sharing rules, we said read only. Even if we make it read write, the profile will still have the final say. The profile determines if this guy can edit or not. The profile determines if this guy can edit or not. It is not the sharing rules. The sharing rules is just sharing of records. Now, going back to this, I have a sharing rule. I'm going to delete it. We've seen how to share records based on criteria and based on record owners. And we've also seen how to share records based on roles and subordinates. There is what they call public groups. What are public groups? In Salesforce, public groups are essentially a group of people, and you can create public groups. I want to create account managers public groups, or I'll call it managers public groups, meaning that it could be any manager. It could be account manager, case manager, or whatever manager it is. So I created public group label managers. Remember, label could be anything, okay? Just be very descriptive when you create label, because in future, you might have left the organization and someone will be wondering, why was this public group created? Now, I go to users. I'm going to select people that I want to add to this public group. Remember, I can select users. I can select roles. I can select roles and subordinates. I can select public groups. So you can add people from a public group into another public group. You can add users into a public group. You can add roles, people with X roles, into a public group. Once you've selected those that belong to this public group, you save. Previously, we have sharing settings, and all our sharing settings were based on roles and subordinates. Now we want to test with public groups. So the same way we've been sharing records, we can also share with public groups. The root time principle still applies, meaning that I can still share based on record owner or based on criteria, but I want to share with managers. Okay, I'm sharing with managers. Then I'll say roles is VP marketing or SVP, knowing well that we have our admin as VP marketing. I have to select roles and subordinates. But if we just want to share based on role, then I have to select VP marketing. Okay, so now that we have that, roles and subordinates, so we can share all the records, then I'm going to select public groups. Previously, I've selected roles, and I've selected roles and subordinates. Now I'm selecting public groups. Then I'm selecting managers, meaning that I want to share all the records of roles and subordinates, SVP sales and marketing, meaning SVP sales and marketing plus all the roles under SVP sales and marketing. I'm sharing this with public groups called managers. And I have already put the test user in managers. Then I can specify what access I'm giving to the sharing. I save, and based on those sharing rules, the test user will be able to see more than the limited records present, meaning I've shared all the records of VP marketing to the test user using public groups. Why would we use public groups instead of roles and subordinates? As you can see, when I created the public group, I had the liberty to put anyone in the public group. I had no restrictions whatsoever. With roles, you're limited to the people that belongs to this role. With roles and subordinates, you're limited to the people that belongs to the role and its subordinates. Whereas for public group, you can cherry pick the people you would like to add to the public group. This is used for access permission, access grants. A good admin would be able to utilize this on a daily basis. A consultant would be able to tell their clients how to manage access of records. It's very important when you're consulting, okay? So now that we've learned how to use public groups, we've learned how to use roles, we've learned how to use subordinates. We can now understand the entire security controls in Salesforce. Security controls is based on profile, is based on objects, is based on fields, is based on permission sets, is based on permission set group, role hierarchy, organization-wide defaults, sharing rules, criteria, owner-based sharing, and public groups. Now, let's go back to sharing settings. I was referring to manager group earlier. This is manager group. If you check this, that's when you will see manager group option when you are sharing, when you're running the sharing rules, okay? Always have that at the back of your mind. Also, you can create permission sets to share with a group of people. So I'm going to give you a scenario and you're going to tell me how to manage this scenario based on what I've demonstrated today, okay? So I'm going to read it out. Just tell me how to manage those scenarios. If you have an organization where everyone should be able to see all opportunities, or let's say all accounts, but only managers should be able to see the opportunity value. How would you do this? What would be your settings as a consultant? You've been asked to create an object. Doesn't matter whether it is account object, opportunities object, or X object. But all the people, everyone in the business should be able to see all accounts, but only manager should be able to see all the opportunity, all the account revenue value for that account. So let me give you an example. We have an account. I want to be able to see all the accounts, but if I have a revenue value, only the manager should be able to see the revenue value of this field. How would you design that as a consultant?
That would be field level security.
How would you do that? Where would you put that restriction?
Permission set.
What of sharing rule types and sharing by criteria?
First.
And by group.
What criteria would you use? How would criteria resolve that? Criteria only filters what records to share, does not hide the field.
You go to permission set and you create you create a permission set that grants access to.
Yeah, that's it. Permission set. I want you to be confident with your answer and be very specific. As a consultant, they want you to give them confidence. So you have to speak with authority. Permission set to add extra privileges for the manager. That's it. Now, another scenario. Users work competitively, meaning that I should not be able to see the sales performance of my teammates. I should only be able to see my own sales performance. Because if I see the client you're trying to reach, I might steal that from you and go reach out to the client back door. How should I design the system as an admin or a consultant to protect data? So only me can see my record.
Hello.
That's role hierarchy.
Organization-wide default and set it to private.
Who's speaking? Let me see who's speaking. Who said that?
OWD private.
Okay, that's right. You set the organization-wide default to private. If you set it to private, no one can see anything. Okay? Unless the person has view or permission. The view or permission will override the OWD settings. Okay? So now another scenario. No one should be able to see each other's accounts, but user share on a record by record basis. When needing help with assistant, when needing help with some maybe accounts, how would I be able to share that record? Or how would I be able to set the system, the org?
Using the criteria you set.
I think it's OWD private plus manual sharing, I think.
I think it's by using the sharing rules based on the criteria set.
So how would you use the sharing rules based on the criteria set? Let's say we want to use accounts. We go to new. Now, tell me what criteria would I use?
The name of the account, if you're sharing a particular account name. So based on criteria, account name equals, say, Burlington.
Okay, now who am I going to share it with?
The particular person who needs the information or access to that data. So it may be tied to roles, or if we need a particular department to say roles and subordinates.
Yeah, but you're sharing with a lot of people then, because it's going to be based on roles, and everybody that has that roles will receive that data, and you don't want that. So
is it not possible to use manual sharing?
Yes. The answer to that question requires you to understand another sharing rule, which is the manual sharing. And that's where I was going to. The manual sharing can be used to share one single record with another user. Let me ensure no sharing is enabled right now. No sharing is enabled. So the manual sharing is used to share one particular record with another user. How do you share that particular record? Let's say, for instance, I want to share Dixon PLC records with test user. Let's go to test user. And test user can only see this. Okay? Test user can only see this. But I'm working on a I'm collaborating with a colleague, and I want them to see the details of a particular account I'm working on. Then I can go to sharing. I will select test user. Then I can give access. Remember, the minimum access you can give at the account level is read only when you're sharing, because you're sharing, when you share, they would see. When you share a record, the minimum you can give is let them see that record. But you can give more than the read only. You can give read writes. This is an exam question. They will ask you, when you share a record, what is the minimum level of access you can grant? The minimum you can grant is read only. However, you can also give read writes. But for case, you can make it private. For opportunities, you can make it private. The reason why case and opportunity comes whenever you're sharing account is because account, case, and opportunities are linked together. I talked about relationships yesterday. This is where it comes in. So I gave access to test user and I save. Now that I've shared just one record with test user, if I refresh this, the test user will be able to see Dixon PLC. Okay, the test user will be able to see Dixon PLC. Now, yesterday, one of your colleagues asked what control by parent means. Control by parents is an access that is granted as a result of you sharing a master object. For instance, because I share Dixon PLC, with test user, I was able to share the contacts under Dixon PLC. This was done by default. This was done by the principle called control by parents. Control by parent determines whether someone can see access because they've seen the access of the parent of that record. There are so many options when it comes to internal access. If it's a lead, you can read, you can share public read, you can share privately, obviously you can set privately. You can share public read, you can set public read write, you can set public read write and transfer. For accounts, you only have private, public read only, public read write. For most objects that are interconnected to one another, you will see that you can have control by parents, which is by default. But in a master detail relationship, you have that control by parent by default, okay? So if you have public read only, you have that control by parents, and you can set it private, you can set it public read depending, okay? If you have opportunity, you have private, public read and stuff. I think one of the major difference or what you should observe is lead has transfer and campaign has full access. And I think every other one is just public read, write and stuff. Price book has use, but again, you don't need to overwhelm yourself with this. Just focus on the basic objects and get accustomed with it. However, one of the most important things you need to know here is grant access using hierarchies is enabled by default on all standard objects, and you cannot disable it. When you create custom objects, you'll be able to either enable grant access using hierarchies or not. Okay, so that's all we have for configuration and setup, which is what 20% of the certification exams. And if you can master everything here, and in the previous classes we've had, you'll be good for this exam. So I'm going to stop here for a minute, and I'm going to open the floor for you guys to ask me questions. If you have questions, please raise your hands up and I'll be able to answer your questions accordingly. But remember, try to ask questions based on what I've taught you, so we don't go into things I haven't touched yet. Okay? So I'm going to call one after the other. II-C, please. II-C A3 Scrum Master, please.
Oh, hi. I just wanted to ask, when you were sharing, that's under sharing rules, and you went to account sharing, why were we able to see options under opportunities and so this opportunity access and case access is this supposed to be under accounts as well? Why will we see the level of access for it? I thought we should only be able to see sharing rules for accounts. Since only the accounts objects we want to share, why can't we see the option for opportunity and case objects? I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's a good question. The reason why you can see that is because cases are related to accounts. So when you're creating a case, you create an account name and you want to enable that option when you're sharing, because what would happen when you share a record and later on you have a case for that account? What should that option be for that case, for that user? Okay, that's the reason why Salesforce gives us that privilege the opportunity to set it in case a case was created for this account. What kind of sharing would that case, what would be the sharing of that case? So it's mandatory we select it now for future purposes. Okay?
Okay, so thank you. So that means in this case where it's set to private, it means that you don't want to share the opportunities and cases with that person. You only want to share the account information. Is that correct?
That's right. Yes.
Thank you.
No worries. Charlotte, please.
Hi. So my question was, would profile settings always will profile settings override the sharing rules or settings?
That's a good question. Once again, the profile is the god of the user, meaning the profile determines what the user can do in the system. So in as much as the profile has certain abilities, okay? The profile as maybe read, create, edit, it does not override as such. The organization-wide default determines how much record the user can gain access to. Private, public read, write. That's the organization-wide default settings. Just have that at the back of your mind, okay? Now we go to the profile. The profile says the user can read. The organization-wide default setting says the user can read all records because the default setting says public read. But if the profile says you cannot read, it does not matter what the organization-wide default says, even if it is public read, but the profile says you cannot read, it means you cannot read. So the profile determines what you can do. Organization-wide defaults, roles, permission sets, public groups, and the likes, they open up the access. They do not restrict access, okay? So they are interlinked, but the profile is still the most powerful thing because regardless of whether you share the record or not, if the profile says you cannot read, then you're sharing in vain. The guy would not be able to read it, okay? Does that help?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Oh, okay.
Edosa, please.
Good evening, Babatope.
Evening.
It's getting complex. Anyway, I think by the time we watch the video over and over. So my question is, I just want to touch this issue of, when we talked about delegation and delegating user. So my question is, when you delegate a user, if, for example, on an organization, you delegate a user to be the admin, is there any way an admin in 6org can distribute these permission set organization, all these permissions? Can you distribute it to this person you delegate as a user? Like, can this person actually be doing all these things in that organization without 6org administrator?
Okay. The purpose of a delegated administrator is to manage users, manage permission sets, manage roles. So if we have created a delegated administrator, then we can add the users which this delegated administrator can, like the people delegated administrators, you can have that users, right? Then you can have the roles which they can manage. Assignable profiles, meaning that can this user create user and assign this profile to that user? Permission set. Can this user create permission set, or can this user assign the permission set that is in the system to certain users? As an admin, as a main admin, your job is to do the high-level thing, right? But as a delegated admin, you're feeding off the crumbs of the primary administrator, meaning that guy would have created public groups. Then this guy will now be able to assign these public groups to users. The admin would have created profiles, permission sets. Then the delegated admin will be able to assign these to users they are in charge of, or the roles they are in charge of. So it's just a way to limit the activity of the primary system administrator, nothing more.
Yeah, I just wanted to know if so long you're delegating a user to be maybe, let's say, the admin or the IT tech, so you can actually give him the right to do, provided you created all those things, then you give it to him, then he can delegate it to those users. Right?
Yes.
That's what you mean, right? Okay,
yes.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
No worries. Maybe please.
Okay, so my question is about the manual sharing. So take, for instance, a user might have shared multiple records with his other colleagues at different times. How is he able to come back at some point to be able to review what he has shared and possibly unshare those things?
So if you go to the record which I shared earlier, which is Dixon PLC, you'll be able to see those records and you'll be able to take it off the people you've shared it with. So I'll go to Dixon and I'll go to sharing. As you can see, it says shared with 2 groups of users, edit, and I can take it off. It's shared with 2 groups of users. The first one is you, the owner. And the second one is who you shared it with. And I just took it off right now and I save. That's the only way you can do, that's one of the ways you can do it. The other ways is if you run reports and see who can see, but that's the job of an architect, not you. Admin typically wouldn't have to, there's a way to actually check it using reports, but we're probably gonna get there when we get to report and dashboard. But again, that's mostly the job of architect. You can actually run who can see who records, and based on that report, you can now take off, or you can revoke access. In addition to that, when we're doing sharing, you go to sharing settings, you will see the sharing that we created. So let's say I want to create a simple criteria-based sharing right now. Criteria-based sharing for managers. Okay, I have it, and I say criteria whenever the account number equals, or whenever the revenue, let's use revenue, something more interesting. Revenue, where's the revenue? The account revenue, just 1 minute. I cannot see the revenue.
It's not there, it's supposed to be alphabetical order.
Oh, okay, let's just use account number equals, I was gonna use greater than, but again, doesn't really matter. I'll use Dixon, okay? The Dixon, this is a criteria, but this is the easiest of the criteria you can possibly create. And we're sharing with the CFO, or we can share to all internal users, but that's just pointless. I save. The reason why it's pointless is because why would you share with everyone in the system? Unless it's just something, So now that we have that, you can also see the sharing in place. When you go to the sharing settings, you can see all the sharing you put in place. You can just revoke it from here as well. Once you delete it, everything gone. Everything will be gone, okay? So that's another way to delete the sharing you have in place, besides the manual sharing. The manual sharing, you might want to run a report, but the other sharing, you can easily see it within the dashboard. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So Vinita, please.
Hi, my question is regarding sharing rules. So just wanted to know if in a single case, can based on owner and based on criteria can be applied?
Yes. So you can either share based on owner and you can share based on criteria. Sharing based on owner would come as individual, like public groups, roles and subordinates. But criteria would always have the field which you need to be looking out for. In addition to that, you can add filter logic. Filter logic is a bit complex, but I can easily explain to you. So what I'm trying to say with filter logic is this. If the city, let me look for the city here. What's the city here? Don't let me use city. Let me just use SLA serial number. So I want to share a record. If the SLA I'm sharing, I want to share account records. So I'll go to account object sharing. SLA and account number criteria, okay? Then I would say if the SLA serial number equals this, and if the account number, what's the account number? Account number is this. Mm-hmm. But obviously I'm gonna manipulate it such that it doesn't match. I'll just put additional 7 just for our testing. So add filter logic. So what this filter logic means is that if 1 is true and 2 is true, share the records. So if there's a match on serial number and a match on account number, share the record. 1 and 2 must match. You can also have or, meaning that if 1 is true or 2 is true, share the records. So if 1 is true, it just share the record. If 2 is true, it's going to share the record. That would also work. So that's what the filter logic is for. Okay? That's what the filter logic is for. But again, it's based on criteria. Okay? They can ask you in exam that how can you use filter? What options gives you a filter logic in sharing rules? Owner-based sharing, criteria-based sharing, you select criteria-based sharing. Okay?
Okay.
Yeah.
So my question was actually, I just thought of an example saying that if there is a CFO who is asking for, information or a data of all the sales manager whose turnover is more than $1 million. So how do I share this information with CFO?
Let me try and understand what you've just said. I'll delete this and I'm going to delete the other one. When you delete, it takes some time to recalculate the sharing rules. Every time you share rules, every time you create a share rules, the system recalculates sharing rules. That's why you don't do this actively in production. Whenever you have a lot of users, you do them closing hours, okay? Just for heads up if you're working in a big enterprise. So now let's walk through your question. New, I'll say CFO sharing, okay? Mm-hmm. So walk me through your question. What's the first criteria? What's the first point?
So first point was based on owner. I want to share the information of all the sales manager whose turnover is, the second criteria is whose turnover is more than $1 million.
So who are the sales manager? Are they in a public group or where are they? So I need to know where the sales manager are. So what you can do as a starting point is to create a public group called Sales Manager. Okay? This collects all the sales manager in the system. Let's say you have 10 users, you just select the manager, sales manager. We create sales manager public group. Fine. Now, let's go back to sharing settings. Sharing settings for sales manager, public group. Okay, but you want to share it in public. Who do you want to share the record with? With the sales manager, right?
With CFO, yeah.
With CFO, okay. So you select rows, then you select CFO. Then you now use a criteria. Do you understand? Use the criteria. Oh, so okay, let me get it right now. You want to select all records whose revenue is greater than X amount with the CFO.
Yes.
But who created those records? The sales manager.
So
you don't use a group of people and a criteria. You either use owner, which is a group of people, or you use a criteria, meaning that you're looking for a particular value. Do you understand? But you cannot limit the share from owner and limit based on criteria. It's either one of the two.
Okay, yeah, that's what I wanted to ask, because that was my question, saying that, you know, if a CFO wants to have an information of all the sales manager whose turnover or quarterly turnover is more than $1 million, then how we have to share that information with CFO?
You can just create a report. Why would you want to share? Just create a report and generate that report straight off. But again, obviously, if you want to share, then you have to either group sales manager and share based on the owner, okay? The owner of that record. But you cannot use the owner as well as a criteria in the same sharing rules. It's very hard. You just create a report. Alternatively, you can go to, let's say you have this, you can, what typically I would do is I would just create a new list view, okay? Then I will give access to this list view based on certain group of people, right? Sales manager, okay? Then I'll just say revenue greater than 300,000, okay? So revenue greater than 300,000 is only shared with sales manager, okay? Or maybe CFO, sorry. It's only, I have to create a group called CFO, but I'm just using sales manager for the time being. But ideally, you should create a group called CFO, okay? After creating this, then you now do a filter. We haven't done this, guys, so please, that's why I usually try to limit to what we've done. This is what we're gonna be doing next. So I just want to kind of like give you heads up. We haven't done this, so don't bother about what I'm doing right now. I just want to make sure that I answer that question right. Then you can go to revenue. Then you can select value greater than 300,000 or something like that. Done, save. So this list view will give you all the values that have a revenue greater than 300,000. Okay, as you can see, there are, I don't know what this is. Okay, this is a million, so don't worry about that. This is a million, so it's greater than 300,000. Now, this view can only be seen by a certain group of people based on the settings of this view, okay? Based on the settings. Remember, I'm sharing with manager, okay? That's how you create a view and you share it with the group of people you want it to be shared with. So you don't need to worry about sharing rules. You only create a group of users. But the only downside to this is that when anyone just go to all accounts, they can see all the information. So you don't really protect record. You only just streamline the process of presenting information. Okay? That's just the difference. Okay?
Okay, thank you so much.
No worries. Comment, please.
Hi. I don't know if anybody had. Sorry, I don't know if anybody had asked that question before, but I was just going to ask if there's a way to set a time frame for these permissions, so that you don't have to go back to remove them.
I think someone asked yesterday, and I said you cannot control this sharing based on time. Okay. However, you can create a flow. I think Salesforce is introducing flows right now. You can create a flow that automatically expires based on certain time. So if you want to share access based on a stipulated amount of time, you just need to use a flow that expires after X amount of days. So you can use created date plus 10 days, created date plus 5 days. Then the flow will either trigger after 5 days or it expires after 5 days or something like that. So you can use flow to do this. Okay?
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah. I hope we touch flow during this training. Okay? Shagun, please.
Okay, my question is, because of so many activities done by the admin, is there a way the admin can have like a summary or access to know what have been done and what needs to be taken out or something? So as you can have control of all your activities over the last 1 month or there.
Okay. Earlier during the training, I introduced you to set up audits. Okay, I think it's set up audits. Set up audits looks for things that has happened in the org. There's a date time stamp that shows you what the user of an admin is doing in the org. As you can see, everything I've been doing since the beginning of this class is being logged. So if you're working in a very sensitive environment like a bank, someone will be in charge of auditing activities of your Salesforce org. And they can tell if you're trying to manipulate things or if certain things are out of or are a bit out of scope or something like that. Then they can probably address it. But this is one way to track what is going on in the Salesforce org. Okay? Another way is to enable event monitoring. With event monitoring, you have the option of logging every action. If someone logs into the system, you can track that. If someone logs out, if someone logs in as someone, you can track what the person did. And you can start investigating if someone is trying to, I don't know, whatever reason why you want to know, but you can do everything, including running a report every other month to find out what is going on in your Salesforce org. Again, this is outside of the scope of our teaching, but I just have to tell you that it is possible to log everything that is being done in your Salesforce org. Okay? Ade, please. Ade, please.
Yes, thank you, Babatope. My question is a bit, couple of questions back, classes back actually. I understand this part. So in checking a user's profile, I've been trying to, what you showed us in class, the view I have is quite different. And I've tried several other things and I'm pretty stuck. I don't know if you permit sharing screen.
No, it's okay. We cannot share screen now. Let me just explain to you. I think some of you have a different view, just like this. You can go to user management settings, and user management settings, you have the option of enabling enhanced list view for your user interface, and you can enable or disable clone and all the likes, okay? So just try to go to your user management settings and see what you've enabled or disabled. That will now determine what you can see. Previously, we saw something different, right? So if I go back to this, I should be able to see something a little bit different from what I saw the last time. Can you see right now that is now A, B, C to Z, and you can delete, you can clone, and the likes compared to the previous settings. Also, you can see that if I go to the individual profile, I can see it condensed, meaning that everything is now grouped together. But if I go to my user management settings and I change that settings from this to something different, I refresh this and I go back to my profile, you will see something different compared to the last time, okay? And you go here, you see something different compared to the last time. So whatever settings you've given in your user management, you're likely to see something different to what I can see. But everything is configurable, but make sure you know where you're making changes to your Salesforce org.
Okay, so just to say, Babatope, as you are just showing us now, I'm on my second screen and my user management settings is exactly the way it is. So I have the enabled personal information management, it's enabled, hide personal information, it's enabled, enhanced profile list views is enabled. But when you go to that particular account at the top, where you have the option of edit, user settings, clone, I don't have that edit option. Yes, that first one to your left, I don't have that.
So
I'm able to
check who your login has. Don't log in as a custom user, like a user that does not have the power to edit and try to edit. You have to log in from your hands-on org. That's when your system administrator rights kicks in. But once you sign out and you log in as a user you created, you only see limited options because the user does not have the ability to edit. Remember everything I said. Your profile is the God. So the first thing you want to check is what profile does this user have on the Salesforce? The profile determines what the user can do. So anytime you realize you cannot do anything, ask yourself, what kind of profile is given to the user that I am logged in as? Okay, so make sure you log out and you log in from your trailhead so you can log in as a system admin and you'll be able to edit anything. System admin can do virtually anything, okay?
Okay, thank you. I've done what you said, but I will do it again. Thank you.
No worries. AM, please.
Good evening, Babatope. You were talking about manual settings. So I have a question. I think he's in that line, but I'm not sure. How do I grant access to a new to a group of users, for instance, who cannot view an object that is not here on the menu? For instance, maybe revenue. They want to be able to view revenue, but exclusive to that particular user group. How do I create it before I grant them access?
So if I'm trying to understand the question. So you have a revenue object, okay? And you want to
it's not
grant...
here. It's not there. It's not created yet, but they want me to create it and then grant them access.
Then you create it and you grant them the access.
Yes. So what's the process of creating it and then granting them? You've taught us about granting them access, but how do I create it before I grant them the access? That's
what we're going to learn tomorrow. Objects, okay. Custom and standard object, fields and relationship. I know we touch objects, but I don't want to go into details of object because that's a different topic on its own. We're going to learn how to create objects. Then we're going to learn how to create fields for an object. We're going to learn how to use the types of data types for a field. What is the difference between a checkbox and a test field and a pick list? Okay? We're going to learn that tomorrow. Okay, so please attend the class so you can learn. Okay. Yeah, is that all?
That's all. Thank
okay,
you.
Good. Doris, please.
I wanted to know what the difference between permission set and role hierarchy is, because I remember you said the permission set opens up access. So, and it appears like the role hierarchy kind of opens up access too. So I'm kind of confused what the difference between the both of them is.
That's a good question. Okay. The role hierarchy opens up access based on roles, meaning that if you have a role, okay, you have a role, you can open up access for the CEO because the CFO is under the CEO. You can open up access to the SVP, to the SVP, because VP is under the SVP. So roles is based on hierarchies. It's based on who is the boss. Whereas permission sets is independent of roles. There is no relationship between who you give access to. You decide who you want to give access to when it comes to permission sets. All you just need to do is go to manage assignments and you add the user you want to give access to. There are two different processes you need to understand. Roles hierarchy is based on a chronological or an orderly way of granting access. Whereas permission sets, you have the liberty to select any user you want to give access to and grant them access. Does that help?
Yes, it does. And my second question, I'm still having issues with I don't see Salesforce under my permission set. So I know I'm not able to share my screen right now, but I really don't know what to do.
This is permission set. I click on new and I select a license. I scroll down. There is permission set license and there's user licenses. Okay.
I don't see the list like this. Your list is way longer. I just see.
You have to scroll. You have to scroll your keyboard or something that you have to scroll with. As you can see, first of all, it shows like this. Then I scroll. You have to scroll up and see other options. Okay. So you need to know that when you see an arrow, it means there are other options that are available for you to select. You just need to go to that arrow and see those options. Okay?
I scrolled and I don't see it.
I think
can we discuss it in tutorials, please?
No, I think I had the same problem. And to solve that problem, click on the Self-activated require. If you click there, if you go to the list, you're going to see it.
I should click on where?
Can we discuss this offline, please? Can we discuss this offline, please?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okayeme, please.
Thank you, Babatope. Sorry, I had internet issues at the point where Vinita was asking a question. I think it was around sharing based on criteria. And she asked if you want to restrict share only, I think, revenue above a particular amount or something. And I got stuck there. I mean, the internet was cut off. So
yeah, I think the question was, can we limit based on owner as well as criteria? And I said the rule type says we can only share based on owner and criteria. If you want to share based on criteria, you have to use a particular field within that. So you have to literally say this field must have X amount. So now, if I were to be, if the requirement is that strict, okay, what you could also do is introduce a new field in the object. So when you introduce a new field in the object, you can say the options for that field is manager, sales team, or whatever things or records you want to share, okay? Then you can now say the criteria is revenue, okay? As you guys previously mentioned, revenue, I'm just using tax, but let's imagine revenue equals or greater than is equal to 350,000 or something like that. Then whatever field you've created, the new field, okay? Let's say the new field is account source equals to whatever sales manager, which is a new field you created, okay? So now you're using two fields as a criteria. The first one is you've identified the owner of the records based on the new field you've created, and you're identifying the revenue based on the revenue field. But criteria needs to be criteria, and owner needs to be owner. Okay?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Go see, please.
Okay, so just wanted to circle back to the question someone asked earlier about when they check their profile. I'm also system administrator, and I don't see that clone and all those other things you have. It's only edit, sharing, and change password under my profile, even though it says here that I'm system administrator.
So this is edit just the same way you can see, right?
So
can you see my screen?
No, when you go to yes, when I go to advanced user detail, maybe. Okay, no problem.
Advanced user detail, where's that?
You can type it. If you type it where you type the search profile.
User management. This?
I just typed advanced user detail and I saw it.
Advanced user details.
So yeah, we're seeing different things, and I don't know. Maybe it's a different profile.
Where are you?
I'm in my playground, and it shows me there's an option for me to see advanced user detail.
So if you have users, okay, you go to users, and if you go to users here, you have this option, okay, and you can go to user management settings.
She's searching from the front end. That's why she's saying that.
Oh, so you're here?
Yeah,
okay, no, I can see where she is now. Okay, I can see where you are now.
Oh, so this is settings. This is the front end.
Okay.
Always understand this is the front end. When you can see all this, you're in the front end. When you go to setup, that's when you get to the back end, and it's different. Okay?
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Shalom, please.
Thank you.
No worries. Shalom, please.
Sorry. My other question was, would permission set or permission settings override a sharing setting or sharing rule per se?
Permission set opens up the access. You cannot use permission set to restrict access. So it is very possible to have the sharing rules in the background and the permission sets in the background. Salesforce would always obey your instructions, starting from the least access to the most access granted to the user. For instance, if the permission set says edit access should be given, and the sharing rule says you need to have read write. Obviously, because edit is given, then the user will be able to use the read write. But if edit is not given, read write would not be automatically given. Okay? So you need to understand that the more permissions you give the user, the more privileges the user gets to use the Salesforce org. But permission set, role hierarchy do not restrict access. They open up access. Always remember this. Anytime you start using permission sets, role hierarchy, public group, sharing rules, they are opening up the access. But the profile determines the baseline, the minimum access you can give, the fundamental access. Create, read, edit, delete. Then every other thing you do is just opening up the access for that user. Okay?
So does that mean permission sets or sharing settings is kind of interdependent on permission sets, or they don't really matter? Because you said if you allow edit on permission sets, then the sharing settings would work if you put it on read write. So I'm just trying to understand if I say no editing on permission sets, would the sharing settings still work?
No, the sharing settings would work if the profile has the access. The permission set is only going to be used to open up access, but the profile has the access. Let's do a very quick example of this. I'm going to go to profile, and I'm going to go to accounting department, and I'm going to limit the access to accounting department to read only. Okay? The read only. And I refresh this screen so you can see that this is read only. There is no edits, okay? Read only, no edits. Now I'm going back. I want to do permission sets to edit accounts. Edit accounts. Then I save. Then I assign this permission sets to the user. So the user will be able to edit an account. So I go back here and I refresh. The user will be able to edit an account because they've been assigned the permission sets to edit an account. I'm sorry. Just 1 minute.
Because profile only said read. So
No. Yeah, no. We need to edit an account. So first of all, you create the permission set name called edit account. Then you have to go to the object and do something about the edit account permission set, because we've only just created the name. We actually need to enable that edit account, okay? So that was the second process that I missed. Click on edit, save. The reason why read was checked because you cannot edit what you cannot read, okay? Now that we have that, manage assignments, make sure that the test user has edit account, okay? Then I go back and I refresh the screen. The account, the test user should now be able to edit an account, okay? This is edit. The test user can now edit an account. Why? Because the permission set to edit an account has been given to test user. Now, let me take it off. Once I've taken it off, the test user can no longer edit an account because the permission set has been taken off. Okay? The permission set has been taken off. Now, let's go to sharing rules. Sharing rules to edit an account. And I know that the test user, okay, Okay. Even before we start doing sharing rules, we need to find out why we're sharing this, why we're creating the sharing rules. We're creating sharing rules to share other people's record. We're not creating sharing rules to edit an account. Try to understand the difference. The sharing rules is created to share other people's record that the user does not have access to. So right now, I'm a bit even lost as to what I need to be doing here. I cannot do anything here. However, what I can do is share the records of the admin with the test user, but I'm going to give read-write. By standard, read-write means I can read and edit, okay? So read-write means I can edit and I can read and edit, okay? So this guy should be able to see all the records, okay? See all the records of the admin, but can this guy edit? No, this guy cannot edit despite the sharing rule saying read, write. Meaning that the sharing rule is just there to open up access. However, if the profile says you cannot edit, it does not matter what the sharing rule says. You cannot edit. The profile determines what the user can do. The sharing rules open up access that do not belong to the user to the user. The permission sets open up access that the profile does not necessarily have for that user. So the profile does not have edit. Permission sets open up access for edit. Sharing rules open up other people's access, other people's data record for that user. So understand the differences around these principles, okay?
Yeah, got it. Thank you.
Yeah. Opeyemi, please.
Thank you. Please, can you go to your public groups? So I tried.
Yeah.
So I see when you try to create a new public group. So in my screen, on my screen here, under the available members, I don't see any users. How do I make that appear then?
Select users.
Okay.
Select users. Okay. You can share, you can create public group based on public groups, based on roles and subordinates, and based on users. That's the power of public group. It gives you that liberty to add anyone to the public groups. And based on that, you can easily share records with other users in the system. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
So please, can I just follow up with the lady that just asked a question? Please, it's just a follow-up question. Maybe it will help everybody, or I don't know. On your profile, when you were doing that stuff, on your profile, you only put read. And on your permission set, you created edit, and it works. So, yes. But we said...
This is the edit on the profile. This is the read on the profile, okay? Mm-hmm. Well, the permission set, this is what I've been saying since morning. The permission set is used to open up access that the profile does not have.
Oh, okay, because I was thinking from the way I understand, I was thinking you said profile is the ultimate. If you don't put anything, whatever you didn't allow in profile, you can use all these distributional access to open it. That's how I was understanding it. But okay, I understand now. You can use it to distribute them even when the profile doesn't have it, even when the profile doesn't set it on.
Yes, permission set is used for that. Sharing rules is used for other people's record, not the record that the owner has. Other people, like the user does not have access to by default. Sharing rules is used to open it up. Okay, so you open up data with roles, sharing rules, organization-wide defaults, and manual sharing. Those are the 4 things you use to open up records that do not belong to you. Permission set is used to open up access. So understand the difference between access and records.
No,
Do you understand?
yeah, I understand. Yes, what I'm saying is, profile, when you have a profile, you can either set read, write. So the way I was understanding it, because you said profile is the ultimate, like he is the only one that can open access and short access. I was thinking even when you set a permission set and the profile do not give an access for you to like write, so you cannot do anything that has to do with write, let's say edit. So that's how I was understanding. But from this explanation, I think I understand that even when the profile do not give you that access on your profile to that users, then if you do a permission set to those users, you can open that access that the profile did not give, right?
Yes. Permission sets is used for that. Permission sets. So permission set is like a replica of a profile. It's just that it's based on what you want to give, right? So for instance, if you go to a permission set, you would see that it looks like a profile, almost the same thing you can do with the profile. The only difference is it does not have the login IP hours, the login IP ranges and the like. So if you go to profile, look at this permission set right now, okay? Now go to profile. Go to profile. Sorry. Go to profiles. You see that it's somewhat similar. Obviously, we have a different view. I can change the view. Okay, I just want to change the view. Refresh this, go to profiles. Can you see? The only difference is all this extra stuff. Okay, so permission set is mimicking profiles. Permission set is mimicking profiles such that it makes it easier to open up access for selected group of people, because you don't want to put those permissions in their profile. You want only selected group of people to have access, but you still don't want to create a new profile for them, because imagine you just want to have extra access for a manager. Are you going to clone another profile just because you want to give the manager the profile? No, you use permission set for that. That's the advantage or the primary purpose of having permission sets. Okay?
Thank you. Yes, I understand that better.
I think we have about 3 minutes left. You guys have any other questions? Those are having issues. My expectations are by now, you should be good. Ganiyu, please.
Hello?
Ganiyu, yes.
Yeah, sorry, I know you have explained permission set over and over and over again. And I'm sorry, I will have to just, clarify something very quickly. Now, for the profile and permission sets, from my understanding, now, if a profile is created and in that profile, certain, let's say authorization, let me use the word authorization, is now being given to a particular set of people using the same profile. Is this the same thing as the permission set you are trying to explain to us?
So the profile is given to users. So when you're creating a user, you assign a profile to that user.
Yeah.
You can have multiple users assigned to one profile. That's all. Okay? That's all. However, if peradventure you have a manager or a senior person within a group.
Okay.
And this senior person, because of the nature of what they do, they need to have one extra power compared to every other users using this profile.
Like level of authorization.
Doesn't matter what you call it, but they just want to have extra power, extra privileges.
Privileges, okay, good.
You shouldn't do that on the profile, because if you change that profile, you're literally going to give everyone that has that profile the same privilege you've given that senior person.
That person, okay, clear. It's clear now.
So, okay, good. So instead of doing that, just use permission set to do that, okay?
Oh, thank you so much, Jerry.
Yeah. I think that's all. Thanks guys for listening, and thanks for your time. We've completed 20% of our training. We have 80% to go, but we still have a very long way. Tomorrow, we're going to be working on standard and custom objects. This is where you get to do stuff. I'm going to explain to you what this is all about, how to create new fields, how to create data, how to create records, how to create relationships. As you can see, we have an account. Inside an account, we have a contact. We have opportunities. How can we do that? We use standard and custom objects. I'm going to be explaining that to you, and you're going to learn how to build models. Okay? Thanks, and have a good evening. Take care of yourself, and see you tomorrow. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Thanks. Good night.